God bless you and welcome to the Hour of Power. Again, we come to you live from the store of Healthy You. We thank God for you tuning in. We thank God for this time that God has allowed us to share with you. We thank God for this day that He has made that we never seen before, and we hope all is well with you all. Again, we have my beautiful wife with me and my beautiful mother. And for the last year, we've been talking about COVID-19, and we're still here. We're still here, and I just thank God for God keeping us alive. We ask that you would tell your friends and your family that we're on. Tell your neighbors that New Jerusalem television is on, and we hope that something today is said that you can apply to your life. As always, it is with great joy it is to come to you to give you good information about what's going on in our world today. Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time. We thank you for our life, health, and strength, God. We thank you for keeping us and covering us and protecting us. Now, God, we ask for your insight, that you give us wisdom, that you will open up our understanding, and then, God, we'll be so ever careful to give your name the praise. These things we ask in your name. Thank God and amen.
Amen.
Again, we thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends, family that we are on one more time. It is another day that the Lord has kept us, and we are tremendously excited about that. And we hope all is well at your house. For the last year, we've been talking about COVID-19. It's been a year. It's been a year, and we have had several shows talking about COVID-19, what to watch out for, what to look out for, to be skeptical, to ask questions, and most importantly, to really just look out for yourself. Months ago, we talked about the fact that we can't expect the politicians to look out for us. We can't expect the business world to look out for us. They have their own ideas and how they want things to go. And at that particular time, last year this time we hadn't shut down yet.
Right.
They was considering and thinking about shutting down. And it's amazing to me that all of the numbers that they looked at, and I know I said this about 20 million times, but all of the numbers that they looked at to shut down, if you look at those numbers today, it's quadruple.
Yeah.
And yet we're opening up.
And we're opening up. We were looking at like 20,000 cases shut down, remember? We were looking at like 20,000 cases. It's 29 million, something like that. Yeah, it's almost 30 million cases. And that's why I want to have this show today is, we get the questions. Should we do this? Should we do this? Should we open up? Should we, we're going to give you some bad information we got over the last year, and then you make the decision. Because again, we was looking at like 20,000 cases, and that's country for the country, and it was a panic. We're looking at now 30 million cases, and we can go back to acting like nothing has hit us. So if you have the question, should I? And I guess we can start off with that. If you have to ask, should you?
That's right.
Should you do? I think Dr. J said last week, proceed with caution. And so if it's not essential, and that's another subject that we found out that the essential workers look like us.
Yeah.
It was the everyday hard-working people that we needed to get the job done, that we needed to have society to continue. And those are the people that were affected tremendously. But they were already affected before COVID came. Underpaid, overworked.
Underpaid, overworked.
And so we are living in a time where we really going to have to proceed with caution. We really going to have to evaluate, is it important? You know, again, it was so many services, so many funerals that we just couldn't go. It wasn't safe. And so society is going to try to paint the picture of everything going back to normal, in which the numbers are still going up. They're still trending up. And it's so many. I just have a few bad informations. But remember, we talked about the fact that the Trump administration was trying to hold back the reports of the CDC. And they was trying to, the Trump administration was trying to put out what they wanted out. And it was going against the CDC.
Right.
And even that scenario there prolonged and pushed back a whole lot of information that we should have had.
And that definitely was financially motivated. I mean, they didn't want to shut down. They were concerned with Wall Street and numbers, and he didn't want to see the economy shut down. And that just showed you that he wasn't really a leader for the people. He was a leader for his pockets. So it was all
Started
about
with a P.
Exactly. So it was all about what would impact him personally.
And that happened very early in the year. Remember, and I just have a few, and if you all have some, just throw them out there. Remember, they first told us that we didn't have to wear masks. It wasn't until, I can't remember the actual date, but it was later on in the year. I want to say around like September-ish.
They started to mandate it, and then they started to say that you should, because first it was only healthcare professionals with like an N95.
Right.
And that regular disposable mask wouldn't work. And now people wear anything as a mask. And to the point where you double mask. You know, with these newer variations of the virus, they're now saying wear two masks. So it definitely has shifted from the beginning until now.
Yeah. So it went from none to two. The medical workers were complaining about the N95 mask being too hard to even breathe through. I guess we didn't have to worry about that because there was no way we could get our hands on N95s. And we even tried to locate masks, and they were all sold out then. Even before it was implemented in society, those masks was sold out. The virus, remember, it came out through the reporter. Trump had a interview. I forget the reporter's name.
He recorded it.
Yeah. Trump had an interview, and that's where we learned that it was airborne. Now, we already suspected it, but that's when we learned that this virus was airborne.
Right.
This was late in the game.
Late in the game.
And so we hope we've been a source of good information for you, because the politicians have another plan. They have another motive to find out that we're fighting a virus that is airborne, that can easily be caught airborne, and y'all not tell us. You know, that's just alarming. But it goes on, or it goes on the list of a whole line of just bad information. Remember, they told us that the virus couldn't live long on surfaces.
Right.
And you spray the surface, wipe it down, kill it. From there to spray the surface and leave it wet. Who does that?
Nobody.
Just leave it. Don't wipe it off. Just leave it.
Leave it.
You find out that the virus lived on surfaces for long periods of time. You know, longer than flus, longer than colds, longer than other viruses and bacteria. That this is a super virus.
Another thing that you forgot that they originally said African Americans couldn't get the virus. That
Weren't
was
being
the
affected by it.
first.
Right,
And
absolutely.
of course, we know that drastically shift to us
Yeah.
being the primary.
Mm-hmm.
People impacted. And the other thing is they said that kids weren't
Right.
impacted by the virus. So those are also additional bad pieces of information.
Well, let's talk about it. They said, and it went around because I remember we were thinking about what we were gonna do at church, and even some of the members said black folks can catch this.
Yeah.
To find out that black folks is the
Was
most
dying,
affected,
catching and dying.
you know, and just bad information.
No, not bad. On purpose misleading, and that's shocking. That you would on purpose lie. What do you call that? There's a name for that.
Well,
Malicious intent.
Maliciously, people are dying, and you're lying and twisting the numbers and not telling the truth. That's not alarming. That's shocking.
and we having this conversation with you all today because we have so many questions of, should I? Can I? Is it okay? The only thing that has changed today is the 6th. Oh wow, I'm a couple days behind. The only thing that has changed from this day, March 10th, 21 to March 10th, 20, is the number of deaths and the number of cases. March 10th, 2020, you was looking at 20,000 cases, a few thousand deaths. A year later, you're looking at over half a million deaths. They said by April 3rd, and listen, I am not spewing fear. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just looking really at what they're not saying. They said by April 3rd, that number's going to be 570. It's around 520 now. 500,000, 520,000. They said by April 3rd, you're looking at 570,000. But those numbers don't add up because I wrote this down. Yesterday at 2 p.m., over 7,000 people had died. At 2 p.m. I think for the day it ended up 1,500. Okay? So those numbers don't even add up.
No.
Okay? And so I'm not speaking death. I'm speaking life because I'm trying to keep you all alive.
Absolutely.
Because it's not adding up. What they're telling us and what's going on is not adding up. A year later.
Yeah.
And so the restaurants is open. Let's talk about it. The doctors.
No, let's ask. Are you going to the restaurants yet?
The
Are
doctors.
you eating out yet?
You remember, the doctors came out, you know, he got in trouble because it's messing with the business. He said, I will not eat out. That is the worst place you could do.
Right.
Worst thing you can do is eat out. A few days ago, they opened up the restaurants to 50% capacity.
Right.
And the only thing that's changed from today to last year at the same time is the numbers has went up. You all are so quiet. You're too quiet, like Mommy said. The only thing that's changed is the numbers. Remember, they said if you the quarantine time. At first, they really didn't know. So they would open, shut down, and then they went, they went to like 7 days, and they went from 7 to 14 days. Now, It's what, a couple days?
Well, I would say that I agree totally with what Dr. Bush said on last week, proceeding with caution. They're going to open up the businesses, whether they tell us the truth or a lie. Now, I don't think that they're going to start telling us the truth midstream. It's been a year, and we've heard a lot of lies, and we're not able to decipher the lies from the truth because of the magnitude of the people that are telling them. And I think that the businesses are going to have to open up. They're starting out with 50%, and then they're going to open it up to the fact where our children will be going back to school, and they're going to try to put everything back to normal as possible on top of all of these lies. And I think that one of the things that we don't have to be desperate. We're not in a desperate situation because the Bible's already let us know for us not to put our confidence in man. And that's what we did. We put our confidence in the doctors and the medical establishment. We put our confidence in Wall Street and different ones telling us what to do and what we shouldn't do. But let's go back to leaning and depending on God, because it's Him that's got us this far. It is not medication. There were times when you went to the pharmacy and there were certain things you couldn't even buy off the shelf anymore because they weren't available anymore. So it wasn't Vicks Vapor Rub that got us through. It wasn't vinegar, and vinegar disappeared. Bleach disappeared. Those things you couldn't even hardly buy anymore. It's God. And I think that He's talking to us, and we're kind of becoming deaf to what He's saying. He's showing us that we can't trust them. I still don't believe the numbers. I still don't believe what they're saying. I still believe that there are some very, very shocking information that we have never even heard. And there are things that's going on that we're not going to hear about. I believe that we've got to put all of our trust in God as never before. It has taken us a long time to really come to this point, but we can't trust them. I am so sorry. I'm looking at the numbers that you've given us. We're over 500,000 of people dead, and that's not a shock?
It should be.
That's hurtful.
Yes.
And then when you say the people that are what did you call the frontliners, or the essential people are the black people. And I don't want to say it like that, and it could be brown in any shade. But we weren't the first ones to get the shot. We were the first ones to be made to go back to work, or you've got all the symptoms, but just come to work anyway because we need you. You're essential. I mean, this stuff doesn't make sense.
It doesn't add up at all.
No, sir.
And we talked about it last week. They wanted the essential workers back to work, but they didn't even want to give them a raise.
No.
They wouldn't even. They didn't vote.
No.
Couldn't vote.
And mandated more time, more hours. No raise.
No raise. Still not vaccinated.
Not vaccinated.
But get back to work.
Get back to work.
Yeah. It's troubling times in that it's so much that we still, a year later, it's so much that we don't know.
You don't know.
The good Dr. Fauci said the other day, we're not out of the woods.
We're not out of the woods.
I think that's putting it lightly.
Yeah. I think that, remember when we got a new president, he said, "Oh, I'm so relieved now I can finally tell y'all the truth, and this is what's going on."
And we haven't seen
He
him.
never said nothing. He was like, "Oh, I'm so happy now. I can finally tell you what's going on." That was the end of his conversation.
Yeah.
He never told us what was really going on. And for real, that's our fault. That's our fault.
Saints.
That's not Fauci's fault. That's not Trump. Trump, we've given him way too much credit. That's not Trump. That's the devil working through people. God is trying to put us in position. This stuff is not adding up. So we've got to shift into another gear and do something about it.
And that's the only way we're going to make it. I was thinking the other day, we all know somebody, I think Jada was telling me, we all know somebody that's been affected, infected somewhat
Right.
by this. It's that common. And so this is not this show is not going to help you make it. It's God. It's God.
We can give you some good advice.
We give you some good advice.
Y'all need to stop sneaking to the restaurant and calling me when while the waitress is getting your order. If you're gonna go to the restaurant, trust God and go. But I'm advising you that's not the place for you.
Yeah. And so much, I'm gonna call it bad information, but
Bad
it's
information.
lies. I mean, just blatant. Because this information, it didn't have to be, or it didn't have to come out like that.
No.
It's just blatant bad information. Remember, while we talking about the president, remember Trump was talking about the bleach and the disinfectant. And he claims that he was being sarcastic. But
No.
Trump was dead serious. And because he looked over at the doctor, and the doctor was looking at him like, what is you talking about? But just out of that,
Yeah.
I mean, so many people went out and got bleached, got disinfected.
Well, at what time do you listen to someone that is equivalent to a third grade education anyway? I mean, you have no medical background at all. So at what point in time are you to instruct the United States of America as to what to do? Some laugh, some listen, and some did it.
Right.
There's something wrong with that picture.
And so, again, we have to listen to what they're not telling us. If it's 30 million, I mean, honestly, it's probably more like 60 million. And then you walking around and you don't know it.
You don't know.
So it's more. It's more than that. If it's 500,000, you're probably looking at 1.5 million. You at least have to double it. And I believe they suppressed the numbers to
Oh, of course.
keep, like Trump said, keep everybody calm.
Well, and now they're going to do that even more because now they're saying don't bother testing anymore. They're saying don't, hey, get your vaccine and don't worry about testing. But in reality, people are still getting coronavirus after they get the vaccine and or spreading it. So the numbers are falsely declining and the virus is still spreading.
And that goes to my next point. Remember they were saying test.
Right.
Test. If you feel funny, if you have a sore throat, a cough, get tested. And then it was Trump that was trying to suppress the test. Because he was saying that if you test, then the numbers won't go up.
Exactly.
Well, that's a great way to fix things.
Stay at home.
Yeah, if you don't test, then the numbers won't go up. So then they start saying, don't test, just quarantine. Just bad information. Because now it's so much information out there, you really don't know what to do. Some people we called, we're in the health field. Some of those tests was like $50. Remember, there was to take a test. They were $50. Now I don't know what they are now. I haven't had the privilege to take one. But they expected you to pay, and then you still had to wait. How many days? 3 or 4 days, a week or so.
6, 7 days.
So you test, and you got to wait a week before you find out. And so, after you find out you're positive, you quarantine another. That's 3 weeks. Who can do that? Just bad information.
Bad information.
You talked about the vaccination. They came out, I think, the other day and said if you have all of your shots, you can hang around somebody that had all of their shots with no mask on. but there's already cases of people with all of their shots catching corona.
Catching corona.
So what's the use of?
Yeah.
I mean, just bad information.
And for you to say that you can only deal with people that have had all their shots, only 10% of the population has had 2 shots.
It's less than that.
So even at 10%, how many people can you really say, oh
Right.
yeah, I'm going to go to this store or go to this place and I know that everybody in this building has had a COVID vaccine? You can't. You can't ensure it. And you can't assume just because you see a person with no mask that they had a vaccine.
And see, that's a whole nother situation because we have people now that's been vaccinated that's walking around with no mask.
Right.
And they shouldn't, because
And-
they can still spread it.
They can still
They
spread
can
it.
still catch it. Talk about spread it.
Catch it and spread it.
You know, but, you know, with all of this information, and then you still have, you know, your own ideals and way of thinking, and way of doing things, and your concept of what you think is going on. You know, we got 75 million people that still don't believe that Trump is not the president. And they thought that, what was that, March 3rd, that Trump was going to ride in on his white horse and take over. So, those people honestly believe that. So now protection and safety, that's the last thing on their list. You're talking about 75 million people. That's pretty close to half the population. So that's everywhere. So you know, you may say, well, Indiana's a red state, so they everywhere.
Right.
And so just a whole bunch of, it's almost crazy. And doctors don't like to be tested and tried. They want to be the authoritative voice. They don't like to be questioned. But how much sense does it make of a person that's vaccinated can hang around another person that's been vaccinated with no mask? And you can still catch the very thing you've been vaccinated from. That makes no sense. So now we just giving you tools to think about the quarantine, and maybe the quarantine is a thing of the past, but we still have to proceed with precaution. We have to tread very lightly because this thing is still out there. And it's prevalent, it's relevant, it is there. They're trying to open the schools. This thing is still out there. The bars, the restaurants, is still out there. And so they're going to paint the picture of normal, but nothing is normal. And before we it's going to be a long time before we get back to normal.
A long time.
Remember, the don't travel. Don't travel. There were even states saying, if you came from Florida or if you came from New York, don't even come this way. You know, and now, and then they went from that to you could travel, but you would have to quarantine when you got there.
Right.
And then quarantine when now
Right.
it's just everything is open. You can travel to Mississippi. You know, you can travel to Florida, the hot spots.
Well, you know, I mean, when you look at it that way, they're giving us a message because they are no longer trying to protect us from this pandemic. They're no longer trying to quarantine. They want things to go back as much as possible to normal, whether it means more deaths, more fatalities, but that's what it's adding up to be. Yeah. Now, it's worse this year than it was when they shut everything down.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to reopen everything aggressively. Some nurses are saying that they had, well, let's talk about some of the symptoms. This started out with 6 or 7 symptoms. Now we have what, 27,
I
28
believe it's
symptoms?
We're at like 27.
I'm losing track. So
and
in,
the very thing they said you had to have,
Mhm.
like the fever and the
Mhm.
cough, the predominant symptoms, you don't
you,
have to have
you
them
don't,
anymore.
no, that's crazy. So whether we believe it and accept it or not, and especially those of us that are senior citizens, you've got to use some wisdom and be wise. Continue to wash your hands. Double mask. There are some things that some people are doing that's unnecessary. You're putting yourself in harm's way. So when you put yourself in harm's way, you're running the risk of harming your entire family. But since the numbers are greater, far greater now than they were last year, let's act like we're more intelligent than they think we are.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it's affecting the black community at alarming rate.
At alarming rate.
And it's one stat that I haven't seen, and that's the number of black people that's been affected. They won't tell us that.
And when you Google it, you won't find it there either. No.
They won't tell us. And so
It would probably give you a heart attack to really find out what's really going on with that. And its underlying conditions. I really believe that because of the way we eat has caused us to be the first ones to die. But I'm not a Facebook person, but every now and then I get a link that takes me into Facebook, and y'all still taking pictures of dinner. So, I heard a doctor say, why should I help you to live and put you on a respirator knowing that once you get off, you're going to go back to the same way of life, your same eating habits, taking your medication when you think you need to take it, rather than to put someone on a respirator that is really going to change their life.
it is so much. And we saw, again, we're in healthcare profession, linked with the AIDS ministry. We saw the look on the deputy health, what is his title? The deputy health inspector, the health,
Department of Health.
Department of Health. We saw the look on his face. Terrified. This was a year ago.
Wow.
Terrified. To come all the way to now, and it somehow is not that bad. We have a lot to be careful and to look out for, because it's not going away.
No.
And when Dr. Fauci made comments like "we not out the woods," we really have to take heed to that, and probably double that up. We deep stuck in the woods, because now there's some different strands coming out that they have not a clue what it is.
Yeah.
They say it's done mutated, but we was already dealing with a mutant. We was already dealing with a mutant, and so some of these strands that's coming out, and I'm not a doctor, I just play one on TV. Some of these strands coming out, they are terrifying. Twice as deadly.
And the vaccine won't touch them.
Well, see,
Vaccine won't touch it.
and so the only way we're gonna make it through this is God.
Absolutely.
We talked about some bad information, but it's God that's gonna help us navigate and get through this. Get through this time. We've lasted a year. He's kept us a year, and I believe He can keep us some more years. But we gonna.
And make no mistake, it's going to be him.
It's gonna be Him.
And not we ourselves. It's not going to be the vaccine. It's not going to be those medications that you're taking. It's going to be God that's going to do that.
It's gonna be God, and we totally trust and depend on Him. We don't look at the numbers from the standpoint of telling God what the numbers is. We tell the numbers how big God is. And if you can hear my voice, it's because of God. It ain't because you listen to the show every Wednesday. You know, I felt a desire to give you information to help you along the way. And if you hear my voice, then God has been good. And we will continue to give God praise for what He's done. This is the Lord's doing. And we dare not complain. We dare not pout. But we give glory and honor to God in all of what He's done. It's wonderful in our eyes. The virus have mutated into some other things, and really can't get much information. I saw one scientist was very, he looked disturbed in talking about these mutated forms. And on top of that, or we're yet dealing with the COVID-19. And so we need God's help. And
Absolutely.
that is the only way we're going to make it through this. Dr. J, the medicines, real quickly, it's some back orders. Is that from the COVID-19, or what's going on with that?
No, right now there's a lot of things going on right now. Let's just be real. A lot of the weather situations had a lot to do with the current medication backlogs, because you had some natural disasters in areas that you would normally not see. So, for example, Texas, you had power outages and you had flooding and things like that you wouldn't see. And if there was a drug manufacturing company in those areas and they lost power, you can't ensure stability of the medications that are on the shelf, because the temperature may have fluctuated within a range that would deem them no longer stable. So this is what you're seeing in all of these areas, and now they have to basically destroy this medication and start over. One of the colleges in Texas had to rush and give a lot of COVID vaccines to students that weren't in the age range, but they needed to give it because it was going to go bad. So things like that is what you're seeing from a healthcare perspective impacting the drug pipeline and shipments from around the world. So you have FedEx plants down, you have UPS plants down. So you don't think about that when you see a large grid out like that. FedEx is in that grid, or UPS is in that grid, and now it backlogs the whole country, and that's how the stuff is moved in these trucks. So there's a lot that comes into play when it comes to our distribution, but I do think there's some things that are in play with, from a global perspective, with some of these other countries that we're kind of silently battling with behind the scenes.
Okay, so I can get my hydrochloroquine.
Yeah.
You remember Trump had Trump had a whole list of meds that he threw out there that wasn't even available. It was already
now
on.
Back then it was directly related to COVID-19 because they had already pulled it from the manufacturers directly to try to test it and or use it for a specific subset of patients, so you couldn't get that. So if a normal patient were to walk in with the prescription, you couldn't get those medications he was naming anyway. So for him to downplay COVID and try to act like he was this big, bad, macho person, he got treatment that nobody else would have gotten. I couldn't walk out in my backyard and fly to a hospital and be given treatment within 24 hours of contracting the virus. It's a big difference. So those medications that he had access to, normal people never saw. The 500,000 people that have passed didn't have access to that.
Well, we have access to Jesus Christ, and we have We have inside help. We have extra help.
Mm-hmm.
We have the help
Mhm.
in Jesus Christ, and He's the only one that's going to lead us through this. I still believe this is a wonderful time, the greatest time to be alive. Um, I believe that it can be the church's greatest hour if we stop campaigning and get on our face and really seek God and seek what's next for us. It could be our greatest hour. I yet believe, I yet God can do anything, and that's where our trust, our hope, our confidence lie in Jesus Christ. And He's brung us this far.
Yes.
I believe He can take us all the way. So we thank you for tuning in. We hope that something was said to be a bright spot in your day. We hope that we have given you some information and tools that you can use to help you navigate through this. The question, should I or can I? You know, you have to consider, you have to consider the source. You have to consider where you're going, the people that's going to be around. As for me and my house, we're not 100% open. Even here at the store, we keep the door locked because, you just can't walk up in here with no mask. We got a sign at the door, and we're going to stay safe, and we're gonna keep everybody else safe. We're not in a rush. We go to the stores at down times. Stay out of the restaurants. It was Jada's birthday the other day. It was Valentine's Day a couple days ago, and had to stay at the crib because that's the safest place. And we want the people of God to be safe, and we want to arm you with good information that you can use. You can go back and watch these videos and get good information. We thank you for tuning in. We ask that you would partner with us, plant a seed. I believe that New Jerusalem is good grounds. We have big ideas, big endeavors, and it is our desire to please God and then to help the people of God. So please partner with us and plant a seed here. You can do it by CashApp, or you can do it by Square, or you can do it the old-fashioned way, throw a check in the mail. We thank you for your support, your prayers, and your contributions. Until next time, stay safe, be well, keep God first, and we love you and we be praying for you. God bless.